Hello everybody, I'm Marilyn Maya and welcome to my channel if you're new, or welcome back if you've been here before. Well, it's been a minute. I've been dealing with a lot of stuff. As you know, my dog Princessa Jasmine has not been well. She's been getting seizures, and we've been dealing with that, and just life. You know, I've had a lot of medical appointments and I'm fine, but you know, we've been just going back and forth to the doctor, to the dentist, you know how it is. Also, I have been reading, and I'm going to get into that, what I've been reading. This is a haul, by the way. It's a nonfiction haul, but I did want to tell you a few things first. What I've been doing, because it seems like I'm doing hauls and not telling you what I'm reading. So I just finished Frankenstein. I'm reading it with, it's a buddy read with one of my subscribers, Sarah, and wow, oh wow, I never thought that this book would be one that is a 5-star read for me. I'm not going to talk about it now, except to say that I really learned a lot by the annotated version. I had the large print version, but I took it back to the library and I finished with this version. I haven't checked in with Sarah yet. I will, when I do my wrap up, I will talk more about it, but it just blew me away. So that's Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Sometimes she's called Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley. She was married to somebody named Percy, who plays a big part in helping her with this book. So anyway, I'm also reading Wild, which is slow going for me, but Lindy from Lindy's Magpie Reads told me to keep up with it because it's worth it at the end. So I'm doing that. And I'm also, speaking of Lindy, I'm reading The Code Talker by Chester Nez, which was written with Judith Schiess Avila, and he was I don't know if he's still living because he was 90 when he came to Hawaii, but he's one of the original, or maybe the only original code talker that's left. Lindy said he wasn't Navajo, but in this book he said he was from the Navajo Nation. So Lindy, let me know if I got the right author or not. And of course, and I'm not going to talk about it too much, but I'm still reading George Eliot, Middlemarch. I just finished the first part, Miss Brooke, and then I went right back and started it again, the first part. So I'm taking it slow, and then I'm going to read some nonfiction about that period before I go on into it, and it's fascinating and I'm loving it. So these are quite a lot of books that I've been reading, or they're kind of dense books for me. But I did go to the library and I did get a lot of books for Nonfiction November, and that's what I want to talk about. The first book I want to talk about is a book that I was misled by the title. It's The Emperor of All Maladies, a biography of cancer by Siddhartha Mukherjee. This is the large print edition. I don't think it's this large a book, but because of my eye problems, I need either the large print versions of things or it's kind of slow going for me. I guess I was thinking that this was a fantasy book. I know it won the Pulitzer Prize, but oh, this book is such a wonderfully written nonfiction book. It reads like fiction. It goes all the way back to what we know about cancer, even from the Egyptians. It's written with such empathy, I should say, for what people go through with cancer. And it has, you know, you can dip in and out of it, which I've been doing, but it has a whole chapter about the tobacco industry, if that's what you're used to. He has a lot of quotes at the beginning of each chapter. Here's one. Cancer therapy is like beating the dog with a stick to get rid of his fleas. Anna DeVere Smith, Let Me Down Easy. So, you know, it talks about the treatments, you know, that are used to kill cancer, and how sometimes how ineffective they were. I was reading or I was listening, I can't remember, but it said that the last, I think it was 20 years, they've done more in the advancement of cancer than the last 50. So that's good to know. But, you know, during, I remember when there was a war against cancer, I think it was President Nixon. I was still alive. I was alive then. And they thought they could beat it, but it's not one disease. That's the thing. It's many diseases. It's a terrible disease. I really am learning so much from this book, and I really recommend it. Even though this is a haul, these are some of the books that I'm into right now, that I'm getting into. The next book is a book that I got from a booktuber. That I didn't get the book, but I got the suggestion from a booktuber. Her name is Ursula. Her, I think her channel is Ursula's Sods and Odds and Sods. So check her out. She's a wonderful booktuber, and she said this is one of her, I can't say favorite, but one of the most emotionally immersive books for her about the Holocaust, and it's called Fragments of Isabella, a memoir of Auschwitz, including death camp language. It's by Isabella Leitner and Irving A. Leitner. And what she says on her channel, it's very small, and it's sort of like, almost like a diary, and that's what the fragments are. I haven't read it yet, but it sounds like it's more like a diary of Anne Frank, but of course, she said it doesn't really get into, you know, a lot of the brutality, but it's more of a young girl's thoughts. And I think she and her four sisters survived. So, yeah, I'm kind of scared to read this book, but I know it's important to read. A book that I think I talked about before, but I sort of said that I wasn't going to read it, that it wasn't interesting. Well, I was wrong. It's called Borrowed Finery by Paula Fox. And maybe I wasn't in the mood for it at the moment. It's about a young girl who's sort of, she's brought up by these bohemian parents, and she's like thrown from pillar to post to different places to live, and everywhere the only permanence she has is the clothes that she's given. And she has many adventures, you know, some good, some not good. She goes to Cuba. One of her grandparents was Cuban, and she sort of is left to wander around a sugar plantation. And she goes to Hollywood when her parents decide to take her back. And a lot of it takes place in New York, which I found fascinating, around the 20s and 30s. I think this was, well, she was left at birth at a Manhattan orphanage. And I think it was a congregational minister who she really loved. And she was really, you know, bonding with him when her parents came and took her back, which is, you know, and they were, you know, weren't very kind to her most of her life. But it's written with such poetic, it's just well written, and I think I needed to get into it. I'm not finished with it. So, but I wanted to tell you about it because I found it in a website that was for the best nonfiction in the last 50 years. You really have to give it a close read to really appreciate it, and that's what I'm doing. I'm dipping in and out of nonfiction. So I already talked about this, but it's Dear Reader, and it's a delightful book, The Comfort and Joy of Books by Kathy Renzenbrink. And yeah, I talked about this already. It's a wonderful book about reading, and gives a lot of suggestions about what to read. So yes, I'm still reading this. A book that I haven't talked about, that I just hauled, is I Am 17 Brushes with Death, a memoir by Maggie O Farrell, who wrote Hamnet. This is my first experience with Maggie O Farrell, and the first chapter was very triggering for me. If you know, you know. But I'm not sure if I'm going to go on with it, because I think, you know, for a first chapter to be that brutal, you can't really get into the character herself first before you're thrown into the brush with death. So that kind of turned me off, and also, like I said, it was triggering for me. But I might keep on with this book, and if you like this book, should I continue? Let me know. Is it worthwhile? So far, I'm not liking her writing style, but it could be just me. So that's another book. The next book is, I went down a rabbit hole with Geneen Roth, who I used to read a lot. And this one is called Lost and Found, Women, Food, and God. Unexpected Revelations About Food and Money. This is she always writes memoirs about her a former addiction to food. She was like anorexic, and then she was, you know, a binge eater, which I related to. So this is, you know, I don't know, but I imagine that this still has a lot of triggers for people who deal with eating disorders. So be careful on that. I haven't read it, but I think this deals with her being scammed by the Madoff, Bernie Madoff scam. So she goes through that kind of trauma, and maybe it has to do with food too. So I've been reading, like I said, I went down a rabbit hole, and I found out recently, very sadly, that she has breast cancer. She's still okay, as far as I know. But she has, if you're interested, I think she wrote a blog, The Cancer Chronicles, that it was really fascinating. She's a wonderful writer, and I read her books when I was dealing with an eating disorder. So yeah, she's a really good writer. So I can't recommend this book, but I'm showing it to you. A book that I bought because I was going through kind of, you know, like I said, a down time. And I remember, this is an old book, and it's just a fun nonfiction book. It's called Raging Hormones, the Unofficial PMS Survival Guide. And it has Joan Crawford with an axe. The reason that I bought this again was when I was in my 30s and I read this, I was on the bus and I was laughing so much that people were looking at me. And yet when I started it now, I didn't find it as funny. But, you know, you might. So I just wanted to show it to you. And it says, it's by Martha Williamson and Robin Sheets. The Unofficial PMS Survival Guide, and it's finally the book for you and your cranky friends, confused boyfriend, bewildered husband, and bewildered ex-husband. And I remember that that I found it very funny. So, you know, humor is so subjective. So, but yeah, I don't know, is this considered nonfiction? I guess it is. But she has stories in it that might or might not be true. The next book I want to talk about, I took out of the library, is Rick Steves, For the Love of Europe, My Favorite Places, People, and Stories. And I've been following Rick Steves since the 80s. He was sort of like what I called him, a hippie. He would go backpacking all over Europe, spend little money, and he had a book called Europe Through the Back Door, which was like our so-called Bible when me and my kids went to Europe with very little money in the 80s. So these are his favorite places. He's also an art historian. So, you know, if he always brings a lot of art, not to mention he talks about not only art, but he talks about how to meet the people when you travel. And that's what Europe Through the Back Door is. And his philosophy is that if you just go to the main sites and stay where everybody else is staying, you don't really see the real country. So his advice was always to go where the local people go and meet the people. It says, stories from a lifetime love affair with Europe. And you'll be at Rick's side when he's swept away by a fadoed singer in Lisbon, learns the dangers of falling in love with a gondolier in Venice, and savors a near erotic cheese course in France. So it sounds like I want to read it, but it's not a new book. It says 2020. So I thought I read an early edition of this book, but I could be wrong. So I'll let you know how it turns out. The next book I had to put down, it's Inside of a Dog, What Dogs See, Smell, and Know by Alexandra Horowitz, who's a cognitive scientist. And she explains in clear, crisp prose how dogs perceive their daily words, each other, and that other quirky animal, the human. I was a little bit triggered also by this book, you know, having a dog that's ill, and she talks about the death of one of her dogs, though she doesn't really go into it. And I've been like dipping in and out of it. One thing that I found interesting was she doesn't only talk about dogs, but other animals. And one thing I learned from this book, and I haven't finished it yet, and I don't know if I am going to finish it, but that, you know, we don't understand what animals really want. For example, you know, you go, if you're not a vegetarian and you eat chicken, you say, well, I want to eat the chicken that's free roaming and, you know, eats only vegetables, or, you know. But she says, is that what the chicken really wants to do? Because when they put chickens free roaming, they want to be in flocks. They want to be together. So it's like what we think, what we perceive the chicken really wants. So of course they don't want to be where they can't even move and all, you know, like the Tyson things and, you know, what we see, you know, on TV. But also we assume that we know what an animal is thinking, you know, but we don't. And that goes, you know, with dogs too, because we like to give them human qualities. Oh, my dog is depressed, my dog is happy, my dog, you know, just is so happy to see me. Well, maybe that's true. But anyway, if you're interested, that's what the book is about. It's more scientific. It's not such a feel-good kind of book like a lot of dog books are, like The Purpose of a Dog that I was attempting to read. But anyway, it's a real nonfiction, scientific kind of book. So if you're interested in that, I think it's perfect for Nonfiction November. My next book is a book I also can't read right now. It's called No Visible Bruises, What We Don't Know About Domestic Violence Can Kill Us by Rachel Louise Snyder. This is an important book to read, but it's triggering. You know, even if you haven't experienced domestic violence, it goes deep into it, and it's violent. So, you know, be careful. At least I have to be careful right now in what I'm reading. And the last book is a surprise that I got from browsing at my library, and it's called The Gospel of Wellness. This is a brand new book, and it's by Rina, Raphael, Gyms, Gurus, Goop, and the False Promise of Self-Care. This is kind of funny. It goes into Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop. It starts out with that. Well, the first chapter kind of is funny. It's why the hell is the advice always yoga? Is my face wash trying to kill me? And it goes into different, you know, why women especially are drawn to, you know, this wellness industry that's telling us what to do. And, you know, part of the reason is because our doctors aren't believing us when we're ill. They tell us, oh, you're just an hysterical woman, or, you know, I've read so many accounts on YouTube where a woman's disease is not taken seriously and she really has severe illness. In fact, I think this book refers to Selma Blair, who had MS, and how she wasn't, you know, she was really ill and no one really took her seriously until she was diagnosed with MS. And then she said, oh, good, at least I know what it is. So, you know, since our doctors are sort of letting us down, the medical profession, this talks about that too. We're turning to alternative types of medicine, which isn't bad. And, you know, she says that, you know, it's not like she makes fun of it a little bit, you know, about exercise. You're not working hard enough, or you're not eating well enough. And, you know, how some of the stuff, you know, is snake oil medicine, really. You know, the vitamin industry, you know, you have to like go into it knowing that self-help and the wellness industry is an industry, and they want to make money, you know. So I'm finding this a delightful read. The last book is on my Kindle, so it's also about, I got this on my Prime Video. I get a new book every month. This one is also about the Holocaust, and it's called The Extraordinary Young Women of the First Official Jewish Transport to Auschwitz by Heather Dune Makadam, author of the international bestseller Rina's Promise, which I talked about before. And I'm going to just see if you can see it. It's on my Kindle. But like I said, I don't know if I'm ready to read it this month. But I wanted to thank everyone for your good wishes about my dog Jasmine. And if you wait to the end of this video, there's going to be a little if you wait to the end of this video, I'm going to show you something that I've been doing this month, and that's like enjoying flowers. Everyone is talking about being cold, and it's very hot today. Let me just tell you, I'm in Hawaii, and it's really warm. And my daughter's boxer passed away last year, and her good friend gave her an orchid, and it bloomed. And oh, it made us so happy to see. And orchids don't really bloom in this part of where I live in Hawaii. So I hope you enjoy that little video. I also bought a plant, a croton, that it does do well in the dry part of Hawaii. So I hope you enjoyed looking at that. And thank you so much. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Aloha.